Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on the growth story of India. India continues to stand out as one of the fastest growing major economies in the world. According to the IMF's July 2026 World Economic Outlook update, India is projected to grow by 6.4% in 2026 and 6.7% in 2027. But the interesting part is not just the number. It is the combination of strong domestic demand, resilient services activity, and a difficult global environment that is shaping this growth story. The IMF says India remains among the fastest-growing major economies, supported by strong momentum in private consumption and services activity. This matters because it shows that India's growth is still being driven primarily by domestic demand rather than just export-led recovery. Even as the global economy faces uncertainty, India is expected to continue expanding at a pace that is higher than many major peers. Let us first look at the positive factors. First, private consumption remains strong. When households continue spending, it supports demand across retail, services, travel, housing, and many other parts of the economy. Second, services activity remains resilient. This is one of India's biggest strengths because the services sector has become a major growth engine for the economy. Third, India has entered fiscal year 2026 to 27 with strong momentum from the previous year. Real GDP grew 7.7% in fiscal year 2025 to 26. That gives the economy a solid base heading into the new fiscal year. A fourth positive factor is energy diversification. After disruptions to oil and gas supplies exposed the risks of heavy dependence on the Gulf, India has begun reshaping its energy security strategy. State-run refiners have expanded crude sourcing beyond the Middle East, increased spot market buying, and looked at suppliers such as Russia, the United States, and West Africa. That shift can help reduce vulnerability to sudden geopolitical shocks and keep economic activity more stable. A fifth positive factor is trade diversification and FTAs. India is trying to improve external resilience by using new trade agreements and wider market access. In the long run, this can help sectors such as pharmaceuticals, engineering goods, textiles, electronics, and auto components expand their export footprint. So, despite global weakness, India is still building the foundations for stronger trade-driven growth. Now let us come to the challenges. The first challenge is the global environment. The IMF's outlook comes against a backdrop of geopolitical uncertainty, higher commodity prices, and slower global trade. That means India's growth is not happening in a vacuum. External shocks can still affect inflation, imports, capital flows, and business sentiment. The second challenge is energy risk. Even though India is diversifying supplies, it still remains exposed to global oil price swings and shipping disruptions. Energy costs matter because they influence everything from transport and manufacturing to consumer inflation and fiscal pressure. If oil prices stay high for too long, they can weaken the pace of growth. The third challenge is trade imbalance and export execution. India has been expanding FTAs, but utilization is still uneven, and trade deficits with some partners remain high. Niti Aayog has also warned that imports from FTA partners have been rising faster than exports in some periods, which means the benefits are not yet fully flowing through. So the strategy is promising, but the execution still needs to improve. The fourth challenge is financial volatility. Currency pressure, capital outflows, and inflationary shocks can all affect the growth path. If global uncertainty increases further, India may face more pressure on the rupee, imported inflation, and investor sentiment. That is why the policy response will matter just as much as the forecast itself. So, what does all this mean in simple terms? It means India's growth story is still strong, but it is entering a more complex phase. The IMF's forecast of 6.4% growth in 2026 and 6.7% in 2027 shows that India remains one of the brightest spots in the global economy. However, the country will need to manage energy risks, strengthen trade competitiveness, and stay alert to global shocks if it wants to sustain this momentum. In short, India's economy is in a good position, but the next phase will depend on how well the country converts resilience into long-term strength. The positive factors are clear: consumption, services, energy diversification, and trade expansion. The challenges are also clear: global uncertainty, oil risks, trade deficits, and financial volatility. That is why India's growth story is not just about numbers. It is about how the country navigates the road ahead. If you found this video useful, please like, share, and subscribe for more updates.